Hey everybody, welcome back to another movie review. Hope you guys been enjoying the content on the channel as of late. I just got back in from the theater. Just needed to change a little bit just because I don't know what it is sometimes, especially with like action and stuff like that. I don't know what it is, but like the leather seats, I don't know. I just sweat a lot, especially in my back, so I just had to change real quick. Um, but went out to check this out. Went out to check this out. Um, Went out just to see this just because I was just curious. Been trying to be more open-minded, and I have some knowledge on the source material of this, so I figured just to give this a chance, especially also given the fact that this is a franchise now returning to theaters. And we'll see how that all shapes in the next few weeks for the specific film. That film that we're going to be talking about today is The Mandalorian and Grogu, which was directed by Jon Favreau, who you guys may be familiar with movies such as Iron Man and Iron Man 2. He also did the Jungle Book live action as well as the Lion King live action. And he is also responsible for creating the Mandalorian show. So he is, just stepping from that and now helming a feature based on the TV show, which launched at Disney Plus, the streaming service. And this is the first Star Wars feature ever since The Rise of Skywalker, which came out in 2019, closing out what was supposed to be the Skywalker saga. And, well, here we are now with Mandalorian Grogu about 7 or so years later. And as the story goes, we follow, as the title suggests, the Mandalorian and Grogu. And this takes place after the events of the show, not, more or less aesthetic, but we'll get into that. But it takes place after that, and the Mandalorian is now serving the Republic. He's still doing what he does best, but now he is doing things, not underground. Now he's serving a more noble cause, and the captain of the Pacific Republic in the form of Sigourney Weaver entrusts him on a mission that involves the Hutts, and he finds himself involved now in the underworld once again with the Hutts in the equation, and what seemed to be a simplistic mission seems to have more complications as he encounters or finds this Hutt named Roku, I think that's his name, voiced by Jeremy Allen White. And they form a specific bond, and as the story goes on, it comes, at least it attempts to, try to discuss the ideas behind bondage, and specifically the sins passed down by father-like figures. And the story unfolds from there. Now, obviously, if you're familiar with Star Wars, Star Wars, of course, legacy brand, been around for many, many years now, ingrained into the pop culture. Everybody knows Star Wars, or at least most people should know what Star Wars is. But if you've been following recent Star Wars activity, it's been very much a divided community. A lot of the TV shows that Star Wars has shifted focus since feature films to television. Where we had The Mandalorian, we had a bunch of other offerings like the Ahsoka show, most recently with The Acolyte, which I heard nothing but bad things about, at least largely bad things about. Amongst other things here and there was Skeleton Crew, a Boba Fett show. So there wasn't really much of a focus on feature length, and there's been, tons of projects, that were being passed around. We talked about a few of them in the past. There was going to be a Rey film, which we don't know anything what's happening there. There's supposedly a new trilogy, and then there's another trilogy, and then another thing happening. And then all the focus all of a sudden came on with this Mandalorian project. Now, it's, I think, pretty obvious as to why this was chosen as the next Star Wars feature, because when you look at all of what is, relevant right now with Star Wars, the most positive thing to come out of modern Star Wars media is the Mandalorian show. So it makes the most sense logically to, if you're going to make a feature out of anything, instead of taking a risk with having to go beyond The Rise of Skywalker, because a lot of people were not happy with The Rise of Skywalker, it probably seems more logical to go with something that's more favorable, and that's where the Mandalorian comes into play. Now, my opinion of the show, I've seen the first 2 seasons. I didn't see the third season, and a lot of people were not really great on the third season. A lot of people didn't love the third season. I have a abbreviated understanding of what happened in that season, about Mandalore and the Mandalorians basically getting their planet back, and then eventually the Mandalorian, serving the Republic at the end. So I know what happens there, but for my viewership of the show, it's not entirely a great show. I mean, it's a serialized show. There's not a lot happening. I mean, there's a lot of Star Wars nostalgia and little Star Wars details here and there for Star Wars fans. But in terms of an overall show, in terms of depth, in terms of creating character and developments, it's pretty one note. And the whole Mandalorian character is more of a caricature, not exactly a character. He has a one note type basic function, which is to protect Grogu, and nothing really more than that. But I mean, detracting from that, I mean, it does have entertainment value, but it's not something of true value in terms of overall substance, if that makes any sense. And to some extent, at least with this film, I feel as though that overall sentiment has been extended to this feature film. Because what you get with The Mandalorian and Grogu is, like I suggested earlier, and as the film does also only suggest, is that it is a film about the sins of fathers. It is about, bondage between individuals, specifically towards sons and fathers, and how legacies or actions from said fathers can unfortunately be passed down to their siblings, and it can affect their overall trajectory in life and just putting them on a very, very difficult path. And I think that could have been an interesting thing to explore, but unfortunately I feel in the case of this movie, it's not really caring as much for that, as much as just providing a statement to get us to the action. Because what I think this movie is more concerned about than anything is aesthetic, and about flaunting said aesthetic. It has, a lot of the, a lot of the action that you would come to expect from The Mandalorian, but it obviously has more of a budget to play with, so it's a lot more expansive. It has the IMAX ratio going up and down, you're getting you a lot more of the literal aesthetic to play out. And visually, as it stands, yes, it can be appealing, but in terms of what is it about, in terms of the overall meaning behind what it is after, it's very, very mute, unfortunately. And there's not a whole lot to do in terms of activity, in terms of thematic understandings, in terms of getting us to really resonate with these characters, beyond what we know from the show, which, like I said, is a very basic function. As you watch the movie, you're pretty much getting what the Mandalorian character is, but we need more than that. And if you are going to pull from the show, why not bring certain elements from the show? Bring, Bo-Katan, bring in, if you're, especially if this is supposed to be the first Star Wars film in like 7 years, bring in Luke Skywalker, bring in characters that would, bring about more audience, hence more money. I know it's opening okay, but it's really, when you look at it in terms of budget and all that stuff, it's not particularly great. But it had potential to bring about things that the show did, and then also to also expand upon this relationship between Mandalorian and Grogu. And it's just not there, it's just there for aesthetic. It's just there as objects to get you to the next action scene. And as a result, you get a craftsmanship that is highly shallow, and it just doesn't aim to explore really much of anything. And more or less just wanting to have what is visually represented, and that's it. And you get something, in my opinion, that is largely meaningless and quite snoozy. I'm not kidding. I sat next to a guy and he dozed off. He was snoring, like he was out, because a lot of the time also, like, we get stuff that, like, as for what it is, it's like an over 2-hour movie. This is a film you could have done in about an hour and a half. There's a lot of fat that is needless. You don't need, like, there's a lot of stuff with Grogu, which is neat. Yeah, you get practical effects and you mixed in with the CG and stuff like that. but why is it there in terms of a story? Not much, really. It's just there to flaunt aesthetic. It's just there to flaunt the effects, both on a practical and visual level. And that's not enough. It's just, by definition, style over substance. And it feels more as a product than it does as a film. So I think that, in my general opinion, it's not terrible, but it definitely is lacking in overall direction and lacking in overall real sense of meaning. It just doesn't have a whole lot to offer outside of just, some neat action and some neat visuals, but what do they amount to? What does it mean in terms of a story? How does it all play out in terms of a narrative? And the answer is not so much. So as per returning to Star Wars, I understand why The Mandalorian is chosen, because in terms of the media that's out there for Star Wars, The Mandalorian is the most positive reception that's out there for Star Wars right now. So I get why Mandalorian was chosen to be the next Star Wars film. But as it stands, also, it is a TV movie. It's not really even that, because it doesn't really follow from the show too much. It just uses these characters and puts them on a specific visual fest, but not really doing much to further the show either, And it feels like as if the movie does want to use stuff from the show, but because of unfortunate circumstances, some actors passing away, Carl Weathers specifically, they had to work around that or just leave it non and void. We can't say anything about it because, well, we don't have the actor, So, it feels both rushed and long-winded. It's snoozy, and it's just not having a whole lot to say. And that is a real big detriment to this film. I think that it needed to have more substance to really balance out the style that it has. Because it has a neat score as well. Ludwig is, bringing in interesting beats to this, as he did in the Mandalorian show. But it doesn't amount to much outside of just interesting technicality, but not anything that really drives the story forward or really provides resonance for their developments. It's just all one note. There's one person who has issues with his dad, you have this other person who's trying to protect the little one, and then you have the little one who knows how to use the Force. That's it. And I just wish there was more to that than just that. But unfortunately, in this case, that is all it is. So those are my thoughts on The Mandalorian and Grogu. I was kind of bored. I'll be honest. I was kind of bored. I found myself tuned out, especially when the action was playing out. I was like, okay, but what does this all really amount to? And the answer is not really a whole lot. When the movie ended, the vibe I got, at least from the theater, was that most people were just tired. And I actually heard from some people walking out that they were like, I wanted to fall asleep. So it's more or less disappointing, but I wouldn't call it terrible. But you guys, let me know your thoughts on The Mandalorian and Grogu if you guys checked it out. Like I said, financially, it might seem like it's doing decent, but really, when you think about how much this movie has cost, it's not looking great. But we'll see how that all turns out. But let me know your thoughts on The Mandalorian and Grogu, your guys' thoughts on Star Wars, just as of right now, because I know it's very controversial and divisive right now, unfortunately. And where do you think that they should be going next? I know they have, Starfighter coming out next year with Ryan Gosling, so we'll see how that turns out. But let me know all your thoughts in the comment section below. And that's going to be it for this video, guys. Thank you guys for tuning in. And until then, I will catch you guys in the next video. Bye.